We're covering passage 6, questions 34 to 40. Question 34. In study 1, as the ratio of fructose to glucose in the sweetener solutions increased, the amount of sweetener solution consumed per rat per day did what? So, if we look at the fructose to glucose ratio increasing, it goes from O to U, so it goes this direction. So the sweetener solution, as it got more sweet, the rats consumed less of the sweetener. So your answer has to be G, decreased only. Number 35. In study 1, the amount of sweetener solution consumed daily by each rat could be measured because which of the following steps have been taken? Okay, the rats had access to solid food. Solid food has nothing to do with the sweetener solution, so we can eliminate choice A and choice B because it says solid food had not been restricted. The rats have been placed in the same cage or the rats have been placed in separate cages. Well, we can either use rationalization and say separate cages means they can measure each rat, or we can go just by what it says. And it says each rat was placed in a separate cage, so the truth of the experiment or the logic of the experiment, either one, says the answer has to be D. Question 36. Suppose, so let's recall anytime you have a suppose if Y question, then you're going to have to think, maybe add some extra information or do something where you are inserting data or pulling out data. So suppose that a sweetener composed of 46% fructose and 54% glucose had been tested in study 1. So that's going to put that between R and S. The results of study 3, the Ghrelin, I don't know how to say that, Ghrelin concentration per sample will most likely be what? So in study 3, we're also going to say it's going to be between R and S. So it has to be between 1,125 and 1,279. So your answer has to be H. And that's all you're doing in suppose if Y questions usually is inserting information. 37. Consider the claim. The group of rats that consumed the lowest amount of solid food per day was also the group that had the lowest concentration of leptin per sample. Do the results of studies 1 and 2 support this claim? So in study 1, we see the lowest amount of solid food was by sweetener Q group 1. And then we go over to study 2, and that same one is 804, which is not the lowest amount. The lowest amount is actually 5. So do the results support this claim? No, they do not. So we can eliminate A and B, and now we're just going to say which one is correct. The rats in group 1 consumed the lowest amount of solid food per day. That is true. But the rats in group 5 had the lowest concentration of leptin. That is true. So our answer has to be C. Another way you could get this answer is just by seeing what is true and what is not true in the statements. The rats in group 1 consumed the lowest amount of solid food per day, true, and also the lowest concentration of leptin. So that is true. So you know it's either going to be A or C. Then you'd have to say, well, let me use logic and say which one's correct. Does it support this? B and D both present you false information. The rats in group 5 had the lowest amount of solid food. 5 is not the lowest because 23 is more than 9. The rats in group 1 had the lowest concentration of leptin. That's not true. It's the highest concentration. So just seeing what is true and not true gets you down to a 50-50 chance, if nothing else. Just know that strategy. Question 38. Which of the following groups of rats should have been included in study 1 to serve as the control for the effect of consuming a sweetener solution on the consumption of solid food by rats? So the control is that thing to which you compare your other research. So we want to have a group of rats that doesn't have sweetener solution. So a group of rats that only has access to what? Well, they need access to water and food. So H. They don't need any sweetener. So Answer is H, because they have to be able to drink and they have to be able to eat. So basically, normal rats. H. And think through this logically. If they only had water, they would die because they wouldn't have food. If they only had food, they would die because they don't have water. If they don't have food or water, they would die because you can't survive without food or water. So that's a kind of a logic question as well, even if you don't know the meaning of control. Number 39, consider the sweetener that resulted in a solid food consumption of 16 grams per day in study 1. So we're going to see that down in study 1. Looks like it's sweetener S, group 3. Based on table 1, how many grams of fructose would be present in 200 grams of this sweetener? So we go back to table 1, and we're going to look at sweetener S. So here, when we look at percent of mass of fructose by volume is 50%. So in 200 grams, we need 50% of 200. And I'm just going to set it up as a proportion just to see it. So 50% of 200 is 100. You can cross multiply if you needed to. So your answer has to be B. And question number 40, the last question. Experimental designs of studies 2 and 3 were identical with respect to which of the factors? The chemical indicator that was used. So in study 2, they used indicator N. In study 3, they used indicator P. So we know that's not true. So we can eliminate choice F and choice H. Okay, the hormone with which the chemicals reacted. So the hormones are leptin and ghrelin. And so in study 2, it's reacting with leptin. In study 3, it's reacting with ghrelin. So they're not the same. So it can eliminate G. So J, neither of those. Reach out if you have any questions at all.